Welcome in to First Things First. I'm Sarah Kustak. That's Chris Broussard. That's Doug Gottlieb.
But I took my coffee. I just got here.
You usually have 2 cups. Today you got none.
She's like the nicest person on earth, and she's wearing my favorite color in orange. How cool is that?
I was almost going to call you high maintenance, and now I can't even say that at this point.
That's very true.
We got a ton to get to.
I'll pretend like I'm drinking coffee.
Well,
not the same.
All right. Let's get to the real stuff. And we are starting with Tom Brady. The 42-year-old quarterback is set to become a free agent for the first time in his career. And with many wondering if Brady still has anything left in the tank to make another Super Bowl run, Pro Football Talk's Mike Florio thinks TB12 will generate a lot of buzz on the free agency market. Take a listen.
This is a business, and the business is premised on getting people to part ways with their time and their money and their passion. Tom Brady continues to have one of the hottest selling jerseys. After 20 freaking years, like it's higher ratings, it's jerseys, it's attendance, it's everything that goes along with the business of football. And whether it's the Chargers, the Raiders, the Cowboys, the Titans, the Dolphins, the Jets, the Giants, it's not as crazy as it sounds. And I think any team that doesn't have a quarterback under a big money contract or has like a young guy like a Daniel Jones who can be told for a year, hey, take a seat, we got Tom Brady. I'm telling you, man, it could get wild. It could get very wild.
Wild. And so Florio isn't just talking about Brady on the field in the locker room, but the business of football. Doug, are you buying that a lot of teams will be in on Brady?
I'm not buying that. I mean, like, look, you don't move mountains and get rid of Eli Manning for Daniel Jones. Plus, they're not in position to win. Like, all the things that Tom Brady wants to do, they all have to go hand in hand with winning. You got to be in a situation where you can win. And Miami's not close. The Giants aren't close. The Jets aren't close. Cross them out. Tennessee's not. I know it's a huge burgeoning market. I understand that. I love Nash Vegas. But it's Nashville. He's not going to Tampa. It really comes down to, do you stay home, the devil you know, versus do you go play for the Raiders in what I think is going to be an absolute win in Vegas, or do you go play for the Chargers, for probably the 7th most popular NFL team in the city of Los Angeles? But, you know, the reason that I do think that what Florio is right about is the reason the Chargers are intrigued is not just because they need a quarterback. It's because they need to put butts in the seats. So he's not wrong in terms of Tom Brady would be really good for business, but Vegas is already sold out. Like, it's not about, the Raiders don't need Tom Brady to sell out their new stadium. The Chargers do, and that's where I think he's right. The rest is, I don't buy that the Giants, Jets, Dolphins, Titans, Buccaneers have a legit shot. They may get an interview, but that doesn't mean he's really considering it.
Yeah, look, I mean, we know Florio's plugged in, but he sounded a little overzealous. I mean, he did mention some teams that it's just like, really, the Jets with Sam Darnold? Now, Darnold started, 2 years? Now, is he, or close to 2 years, is he ready to sit on the bench behind Tom Brady? I wouldn't think so, and I wouldn't want him to be okay with sitting on the bench behind Tom Brady. So I don't see that. You mentioned the Giants as well. Here's the thing teams have to be careful with Tom Brady. Okay, as much as I like him, as much as I think if he goes back to New England and they improve the skill positions, they could be a playoff team again and, a fringe contender for the Super Bowl. You have to be wary of his age. He is 43 or will be 43. And when you fall off quickly. Peyton Manning, I've talked about him before. 39 touchdowns, 4,700 yards one year. The next year, 9 TDs, 17 interceptions. Of course, they went on to win the Super Bowl, but it really wasn't because of
Brock
Peyton.
Osweiler.
Right, it wasn't because of Peyton. Who's to say that can't happen with Tom Brady the 3rd game of the season? Or maybe it's already there, and we'll see it next season. Here's the second thing a team has to be aware of. Is Tom Brady leaving New England for a 1-year deal? That's the thing Florio was assuming, too. It's just 1 year. If I'm a team, I'm only looking, including New England, I only want him on yearly contracts. Like, I can't, maybe we'll do a player option or a team option for the 2nd year, but I'm not signing up for 2 or 3 years at his age. And why in the world would another team sign up for 2 or 3 years of Tom Brady when you have no idea how long he's going to remain an elite quarterback?
But you're going to have to, because as it stands in free agency, you always have to overpay to get somebody out of their current
Precisely.
situation.
If you're another team, that's why
So they'll
I don't
have to
think
give
as many teams.
So
will
if
go
you
after.
don't think there's that many teams, and I know you kind of made a case for the Chargers, who are the realistic options? Who would you look at and say they may be a real landing spot for Brady?
I think the Chargers are. I think the Raiders maybe are, but I think those are the only two. Look, the Cowboys have a homegrown talent that they've been able to underpay for less. They're not moving off of Dak Prescott. I feel like Florio, he's excited because he has sources. He's been doing this a long time. But I also think that the NFL is a little jealous of the interest that the NBA has in their offseason movement. But this reminds me a lot of when LeBron was a free agent a couple years ago. Everybody knew he was going to the Lakers, but they wanted to LeBron's people wanted to manipulate the situation so that they had power, they had leverage in it, right? So at the last second, it was like, well, maybe he'll go to Philadelphia. Well, maybe he could go here. Maybe he'd go to the Clippers. Maybe he'd go to Houston. It's like, he wasn't going to any of those places. It was just they're leaking stories because they wanted to create some more leverage. I believe this is all just a power play from Brady. He wants the multi-year deal. He wants to stay in New England. He wants money. He wants power. He wants commitment to getting better players and having a seat at the table. And the best way to do so is to get more interested parties, right? We all know that. We've all been part of negotiations in the past, right? The only way to get somebody to move off their spot is to get a better offer from elsewhere. And the Patriots are like, fine, go elsewhere. You got to teach somebody your offense. There are no Josh McDaniels out there. But I believe that the more teams that you hear might be interested, they don't have a legit option. Like, look, I'm a Charger fan. Okay, I know that organization like the back of my hand. They have better skill position players, by my estimation, than any other team in the NFL. I mean, you got Mike Williams and Keenan Allen, Hunter Henry at tight end. If they get Melvin Gordon back, or if they don't, they still have Austin Eckler. Like, they got dudes. But no one goes. They played 16 road games the last 3 years. This is going to the Clippers before Steve Ballmer took over, before they had Lob City. That's how they're viewed in the city. In a brand new stadium, they can't sell seats, and they don't have a great offensive line. I don't see it being a viable home. And the more names thrown out there, more cities thrown out there, the more realize they don't really have true leverage outside of, hey, you want to go walk away play for the Raiders? That's great. The Raiders have been good once in the last 20 years. Once, and that was when, Jack Del Rio pulled rabbits out of his hats week after week after week. Outside of that, they've been the Browns. They've been the Bengals. They've been the old Aints. I don't see him going anywhere else, and that's why you're hearing so many teams mentioned.
I've said all along, I think he winds up in New England. I think that's the best move for the Patriots and the best move for Tom Brady. You mentioned the Chargers, the Raiders. Those are some teams that make sense. I won't rule out Tennessee. I could see Mike Vrabel. Obviously, they have a relationship going back to New England. And you got the big running back with Derrick Henry. You got some receivers. It's a one-year league now. It's not a 5-year plan for some of these teams. Do they go ahead and try to get him? I could see that making a little sense. I also, and again, I think he winds up back in New England, but I would throw out Indianapolis as well. Here's the thing. If I'm Indianapolis, because the question was what teams will go after Brady, regardless of what he does. Indianapolis, if I'm going after Phillip Rivers, and I understand his relationship with Frank Reich, but why wouldn't I go after Tom Brady? I'm not going after Phillip Rivers for the long term. Phillip Rivers looked like he had less left than Tom Brady last year. So I go after Tom Brady if I'm Indianapolis. I don't have an heir apparent yet at quarterback. The Giants have their heir apparent. The Jets have their heir apparent. So if I'm them, I'm not interested. But Indianapolis, I don't have my guy yet for the future. So why not go after Tom Brady?
Well, outside of maybe Johnny Unitas, but who's the greatest quarterback in the history of the Indianapolis Colts?
After Unitas, Peyton.
Okay. You think he's going to go play for Peyton Manning's franchise?
The question, Doug, was what teams.
I got it. I'm saying
that was the question.
Right. I understand.
I agree. I think he ends up back in New England.
No, you and we're actually we are agreeing, but a little bit of ships passing in the night. The thing is, I can't get past. He's not going to, like, if I'm the Patriots.
LeBron went to play for Kobe's friend. Well, Kobe's magic.
I understand it. And how has that, up until the tragic helicopter crash, he wasn't embraced. He wasn't accepted, right?
But some of that was because, and I know Peyton and Brady had a rivalry, no question.
Yes.
But Peyton left Indianapolis, went on and made another name for himself in Denver.
Yes.
Kobe and LeBron, Kobe fans. Yeah. I mean, they viewed LeBron as the arch enemy, so it's a little different there. I'm with you, but I don't rule it out just because Peyton was there.
I do. It's a non-starter to me. Like that, Tom Brady is not.
Why would he not want to go there just because Peyton was there?
Well, it's also it's Indianapolis. Like if it's about building your brand, okay, it's about building your brand out. Indianapolis.
I think it's about winning. He doesn't need to build his brand out. I mean, he's got TB12 as long as he plays well. If he were to go to Indianapolis and get them on the cusp of the Super Bowl, that would help TB12.
It wouldn't hurt it, but I think the idea of going into L.A., going into Vegas, going into those markets when you've been sequestered on the East Coast in New England, I think that's the only thing about those markets. I don't see.
I like it. CB was just answering my question, though. We're moving on to the Astros. They continue to receive backlash stemming from their sign-stealing scandal. The latest coming from Giancarlo Stanton, who led the majors with 59 homers back in 2017 for the Marlins. The now Yankees said, quote, "If I knew what was coming in 17, I probably would have hit 80-plus home runs."
That's not even a humble brag. That's just a brag.
We know that they don't really care to give an apology or explain their side, and it showed by their response. As players, we know that. You know the repercussions of doing something like that, and you're only really sorry because you got caught. I don't think the penalties were harsh enough player-wise. I think that at the end of the day, it gives more incentive to do that if you're not going to punish the players that took part in it. CB, what's your reaction to Stanton's statements?
I agree with everything he said. And starting with the 80 home runs, because I want to dispel, and I think he's dispelling this notion that some people have thrown out, starting with Jim Crane, the owner of the Astros, that it really doesn't matter. You still got to hit the baseball, as they say. No, we're dealing with world-class athletes. Yeah, for Doug or me or any of us, if we know a curveball is coming from an MLB pitcher, it doesn't matter. We're still not going to hit it. But for world-class athletes, the difference is this much. The difference between a gold medal and finishing out of the medals or a Super Bowl and not even making the playoffs is this much. So if you give a Major League Baseball player the advantage of knowing what pitch is coming, it is a huge advantage. So I love that Stanton said that. As far as them not really being sorry, clearly they aren't really sorry. Because if you're really sorry, then you don't need to demand immunity to get the truth out, right? You're just sorry. You feel remorse. And let me say this about the Astros. They're no different than most people. Most people that cheat aren't sorry unless you got caught. Now, we're not talking about doing a crime. Some people can do a crime and you really feel remorseful and you're sorry. But most people that cheat on a test, in sports, whatever it may be, you're only sorry because you got caught. And I think that's very clear. The Astros haven't really made clear-cut apologies. I mean, some guys have gotten there, but some guys are not. And then there was a story in the Washington Post yesterday where the Astros players, Josh Reddick, one of the pitchers, they're like, look, we're going to take the villain role. All these teams that are talking, they're going to have to see us. We're going to go and shut everybody up. Like, now they're kind of looking at it as a challenge, and they're not coming off at all as remorseful. Kind of like, remember LeBron when he went to Miami?
Yeah,
they want to embrace the black hat.
Durant when he got to Golden State.
Right. And so, no, I think Stanton was right on the money.
I do, too. I mean, he did sound like my cab driver yesterday, right? He was like, Stan would hit 8 home runs if he knew what was coming,
you
right?
Don't think so? I more want to know if you think you could hit a Major League pitcher throwing a curveball if you knew it was coming.
Couldn't hit a fast. I mean, I can't hit a fast.
I couldn't touch it.
But
that's the difference. But you really hear people saying, well, it doesn't matter. You still got to hit it.
Well, two parts. Okay, one, here's the analogy. If you take a test, you don't have to have the answers. You have the questions. You're going to do better at the answers, right? Secondly, Matt Holliday is a dear friend of mine. He's a 7-time All-Star, 4-time Silver Slugger. He was on my radio show, and he's like, are you kidding? Of course it's an advantage, right? If you know what's coming. Like, this is just the most ridiculous. I think the Astros did far more damage when Jim Crane got up there and arrogantly said, and then he contradicted himself about it. Right. It didn't affect the outcome. But Stanton's not only right, not just because they still didn't really apologize.
They actually also said I can't remember which player, but we want it fair and square. It may have been Correa or something.
Correa's like, we want it fair and square. When we're on second base, you can't steal signs. Well, how'd the guy get onto second base? And how'd you have such a great record so that you had home field, listen, they were a great collection of talent, right? They tanked in 2013. There's a whole other story to it, right? I think there's different levels to why Major League Baseball players are upset. Okay, they're upset because the Astros told the whole world we're smarter than everybody else. We got better analytics. We know what we're doing. They tanked. We got all these great players. We got these high-speed cameras. And then when they were accused of this before, they just said, hey, you're just not as good as us. We do a better job of preparing. So I think the arrogance of Jeff Luhnow, their former general manager, and the way in which A.J. Hinch even handled some of these accusations in the past really rubbed people the wrong way. The second part is they've still never made a true heartfelt apology. And once we've heard your first apology, we're kind of done. This is not that hard. Hey, we did something. It was wrong. We feel bad. We won't do it again, and we'll take whatever punishment. The crazy part about them not cooperating and demanding full immunity and the MLBPA demanding full immunity is the MLBPA put out a statement yesterday that said it didn't even matter because the commissioner couldn't suspend these guys anyway, based upon precedent with the Apple Watch scandal and the investigation a couple years ago. Is you have to punish, the GM and the manager and the coaches. You can't actually. They were actually immune anyway, and they still wouldn't talk. They still wouldn't really offer up anything outside. This only happened in 2017. Stop it. You win a World Series by cheating, and then all of a sudden 2018, 2019, you get religion when you haven't been caught?
Right.
Get out of here. I was born at night, not last night. So I agree with what John Carlos Stanton's saying, but I would also point out this one last point. I don't think the steroid era happens today. I don't think, and I think players have changed. And there's never been a moment in professional baseball, ever, where there has been union members going after other union members. Never.
Right.
Barry Bonds is hitting 73 home runs, clearly on horse steroids, right? In his late 30s, doing things we've never seen before. His head size grows, and no one said bubkiss about it. Even when he was caught, no one said anything about it because that was how it was forever in baseball.
But don't you also think? Look, Jose Canseco, who actually ended up being right about a lot of stuff.
Yes.
He said it was 80% of the players doing steroids. And a lot of the pitchers who Bonds and other players were hitting all homers off were doing the steroids and the PEDs. So I think that had a lot to do with it as well. I agree. This is totally unprecedented for baseball players to go after one another like this. However, I think the silence in the PED era was largely due to the fact that 7 out of 10, 8 out of 10 guys were doing it.
I don't believe, like, Jose Canseco, who was right about things, when cheaters say, like, hey, well, everybody's doing it, right?
That's how
everyone who does something said everybody's doing it.
That's how I felt at first, but then more and more and more guys start getting caught, and some of the biggest names in the sports history.
Right.
And so I started thinking, you know what? Canseco seems like he was right on the limit.
I think these guys have learned from that. I think they understand. And look, it was going on in other places in Major League Baseball. Maybe not to this level, but the sign stealing and the use, and the use of those cameras. Like, look, it was going on, and that's one of the things that Rob Manfred came out and said. Like, be very careful about the glass house you throw a rock from. But I do think that they've learned from steroids, and they're speaking out because they don't want to be indicted as being cheaters as well.
With all this being said, what's the path forward? We've talked about this so much, and it keeps getting bigger and bigger, but how does MLB forge ahead?
I've said it since the investigation report came out. Vacate the title. To me, it's simple. It's not even that complicated. I get it, you can't punish the players individually. But if you take away the World Series title, the rings, the trophy, and you try to get the money. I mean, the way the players are talking now, maybe you can even get the $429,000 that they got for winning the World Series. But if you can't get the money, see, you're immortalized when you win a World Series or any championship. Right. And you take that away from them if you strip the title. Also, it gives everyone else a feeling that justice has been served. And I think it'll enable the rest of the league and the Astros even to move on. So I think it's simple. Just vacate the title.
I agree with you. And I think this is why the steroid guys that got caught, and I know that Pudge Rodriguez is already in there, and everybody, and most people in baseball believe that there are others that were using steroids already in. But Bonds, Clemens, Pete Rose, you should never get in. Why? Because of the immortalization when you're in the Hall of Fame. And that's why I completely disagree with Rob Manfred. I didn't mind when he was talking about hardware, because what he's saying is if we take away a World Series trophy, it's more symbolic because we can't take away those memories. And he's right. Okay, but symbolism is one of the things that that links in with immortalization, right? And it's symbolic when we put an asterisk. But I like the asterisk even better because then
I like erasing it.
Because but erases it. You try and pretend like it doesn't happen. When you put an asterisk, anytime you look it up, you're like, wait, why is there an asterisk there? Oh, that's the team that cheated. That's the team that used sign stealing, banged on trash cans, and then denied it for a couple years. And Mike Fiers came out. I think it's symbolic. This is just like the Hall of Fame and steroid users. Can't take away your money. Can't take away your records. Can't take away those memories. Sorry, we can't. But we can take away the immortalization of being in Cooperstown. Same thing with the Astros. We're not going to take away your money. We're not going to take away those memories. We can't do that. We can't even suspend you because of the CBA. But what we can do is take away the symbolic nature of being a World Series champion.
Look around you. It's a wireless world, and everyone needs a great pair of wireless earbuds. But before you go dropping hundreds of dollars on a pair, you need to check out the wireless earbuds from Raycon. You already know Raycon earbuds start at about half the price of any other premium wireless earbuds on the market, and that they sound just as amazing as other top audio brands you know. And Raycon's latest model, E25, is their best one yet, with 6 hours of playtime, seamless Bluetooth pairing, more bass, and a more compact design that gives you a nice noise-isolating fit. Raycon's wireless earbuds are so comfortable, perfect for on-the-go listening and for taking phone calls. Unlike some of your other wireless options, Raycon earbuds are both stylish and discreet, with no dangling wires or stems. Now's the time to get the latest and greatest from Raycon. Get 15% off your order at buyraycon.com/FTF. That's buyraycon.com/FTF for 15% off Raycon wireless earbuds. buyraycon.com/FTF.
All right, on to the Cowboys. Dak Prescott is coming off the best statistical year of his career, which means this offseason he's in line to become the highest paid player in the league. But Cowboys Hall of Famer Emmitt Smith thinks Dak should take a different route. Take a listen.
Dak has to understand and maybe take another perspective. The perspective may not be all the money that you get. It may be how much of the money you're willing to leave on the table, because the Cowboys is a marketable organization.
And so you got all that extra money.
So if you are the face of the franchise, would it not, instead of taking 35, would you take 28 and leave some for Amari and pick up the other 35 through endorsements?
All right, CB, a Cowboy legend. Is Emmitt right? Should Dak take a team-friendly deal?
Look, like everyone, I love Emmitt Smith, but this sounds like en route to that interview, he was on the phone with Jerry Jones.
you can barely see the strings when he moves his hands.
Well, and here's the thing, too. Emmitt is not the right messenger, because we all remember after they won the Super Bowl in 1992, Emmitt held out for more money, and that was justified because he needed to get his money, but he missed the first two games. They go 0-2, and he comes back. Now, later in that interview, as you were telling me earlier, he had said he wanted $28 million over 4 years. Okay, he settled for $13.5 million over 4 years, which was the highest money an NFL running back had ever received. Here's the thing. I don't believe the 28. Maybe in his mind he wanted 28. That's like a quarterback today thinking, well, I really wanted 50 a year, and I settled for 40. No, Dan Marino was the highest paid player in the league at that time, making $4.4 million. So Emmitt settled for, what, $3.5 million as a running back. So Emmitt's just not the right messenger. Philosophically, I am not against guys taking a little less. Now, 35 to 28, that's too big of a gap for me. But if Dak really needed to help the team to, instead of taking 35, take 32, and we'll be able to bring back all these different guys, philosophically, I would be fine with that. I'm not against a player that wants every last dollar, but I think winning is important. And the difference between 32 and 35 a year, to me, that doesn't change your lifestyle at all. So, and if you win more, you get more endorsements, money off the field.
Right.
So I'm with that, but I don't think Dak has to. I think they can figure out how to keep Amari, even if Dak gets market value. Byron Jones is probably gone anyway. Your offensive line is set up for the next 4 years.
Your defense,
you got your running back. But you got some pieces that I know they weren't as strong this year as usual, but I don't think he needs to take the pay cut for them to remain strong. But if he does, then I'm not against a little bit of a haircut, but not $7 million a year.
Well, look, I do agree that clearly it's a plant from Jerry Jones, right? I mean, you almost thought he's going to break out into the Jerry Jones accent at the time. You know what I'm saying? I mean, but look, and this is the same Emmitt Smith that told Ezekiel Elliott that he should get all his money, and Ezekiel Elliott just held out. Like, part of this whole problem is Zeke cut in line. Right, there was a progression that they wanted to get Dak done or Amari done first, and then work to Dak, and then Zeke was going to play on the 5th-year option, and then eventually get him his money. He cut in line, so now they're.
Is that smart on his part? Probably, right?
I guess,
probably
but not for the team, because now, if you franchise Dak, you can only franchise one guy. So if you franchise Dak, now Amari hits the open market, and now you run the risk of somebody coming in and taking Amari Cooper, who, with the exception he had a disappointing end to the season, but did change this team going back to 2 years ago when they acquired him from the Raiders. So I think they're a little bit pot committed to Amari.
They need to keep him.
But I think there's a couple of truths that he's saying. One that's obvious, which is like, look, this is a long-term deal. You're an NFL quarterback. This is not your last contract. If you can be quarterback of the Dallas Cowboys for a decade, you're going to make $200-some-odd million on the field. You can equal that off the football field, right? Like, Roger Staubach is maybe the most successful businessman post-football in the history of the sport, and Roger Staubach was an iconic Navy, but part of it was he was the quarterback of the Dallas Cowboys. Emmitt Smith, same thing. Like, look on TV, Troy, Romo, Irvin, like even Emmitt. Right? Emmitt wasn't any good, and they kept putting him on TV. So he's right that the Cowboys brand is that strong, but I also think the other thing he's saying, which we all know, and it's really hard to say out loud, so he didn't, which is, Dak ain't that good. He's just not. He's not good enough to where he can not only demand top dollar, but make it work if they can't get an Amari Cooper. He needs Amari. He needs Zeke. He needs the offensive line. He needs help. He's a Daniel Jeremiah from the NFL Network. He has this thing called tractors or trailers, right? If you're a tractor, you can pull everybody along. If you're a trailer, you're kind of along for the ride. Okay? He's a trailer. He's not Aaron Rodgers. He's not Drew Brees in his prime. He's not Pat Mahomes. He can't make it work.
But is it about respect?
Even Aaron Rodgers, as great as he is, he hasn't been able to get back to the Super Bowl without having enough help around him.
Right. I mean, and here's a stat. Over the last 10 years, the guy with the highest cap hit at quarterback in the National Football, or highest cap hit is always quarterback. 8 out of those 10 years, team didn't make the playoffs.
Right.
Because you have to have a team. Like, that's the whole genius to the Patriots thing, is that Tom Brady would always take a little bit less so they could spread it around. Now, I'm sure it's growing to frustration for Brady at this point in time. He wants the respect of having a say, and he wants a little bit more money. But, like, look, Dak Prescott, I understand that you've been underpaid because you're a 4th-round pick. Okay, and the Dallas Cowboys found you. He had the DUI before the draft. I think that hurt him. But he fell into Tony Romo's team that was set up, and all he had to do was hand it off, screen pass. It was very easy his first couple years, and he's grown into a very good quarterback, the #1 offense in football. But, like, look, dude, if you want all these weapons around you, if you want to do this for 10 years and wear the star on the side of your helmet, take a little bit less, maybe not the 28, but maybe a 30. Trust me, it'll work out for you in the future.
Have you ever had muscle pain? I'm talking stop you in your tracks, will never work out again, what am I going to do kind of pain. This is the kind of pain Dr. Jason Wersland was in when he created Theragun, the deep muscle massager that's unlike anything you've ever felt. Theragun isn't a cheap massager that just tickles your muscles. Their handheld percussive device uses a scientifically calibrated combination of speed, depth, and power to release the deepest muscle tension. Whether you want to treat alleviate your muscle tension from working out, an injury, or just everyday life, you can use Theragun. Theragun is the preferred muscle recovery device for over 250 professional sports teams and used by hundreds of thousands of satisfied customers around the world to reduce pain, increase range of motion, and soothe aching muscles. Try Theragun risk-free for 30 days or your money back by going to Theragun.com/cadence. For a limited time, our listeners get a free charging stand with a purchase, a $79 value. That's Theragun.com/cadence, Theragun.com/cadence.
All right, let's go to the most anticipated title fight in years. Undefeated heavyweight champion Deontay Wilder taking on Tyson Fury in a rematch for the ages. The fight is Saturday, but the two almost threw down yesterday at the press conference. CB, who do you think wins Saturday night?
Man, I haven't been this excited for a heavyweight fight probably since Lennox Lewis, Mike Tyson. And Tyson was even way past his prime at that point. But I'm going with Wilder in a 10th round TKO. And look, a lot of people think Wilder has to knock him out to win the fight because obviously Fury's the much better boxer. My problem with Fury, though, I don't know how hard he hits. Now, he's got 20 knockouts and 29 wins. It's okay. But I don't think he ever hurt Wilder in the first fight. He landed some pretty good shots, but never hurt him. So I think Wilder will be more ready for his unique boxing style in this fight. And I think Wilder, even if he doesn't knock him out or TKO, I think he'll win the fight because he'll land the better shots. He'll hurt Fury a couple times. I think he'll knock Fury down at least once, if not twice, even if it goes the distance. And I think while Fury might pot shot him, I think Wilder will land the more telling blows and land them more frequently than he did in the first fight.
I'm not going to sit here and break it down like I'm was it Bernie Sugarman, right? I'm not going to Bert Sugar, right? I'm not going to pretend to know that much about the sweet science. I love boxing movies. I love great fights. Some of the great moments growing up in my household was, the no Moss fight, right? I mean, or the Tyson fights, which you pay all that money and then you're like, wait, it's over? It's over already? Get up! How's it over? But I'm with you. I'm really excited about this fight, and maybe for a different reason. Like, I think one of the things that hurts boxing is because we've seen so many of these boxers post-career have mental health issues, right? That it's really kept a good portion of the best athletes away from the sport.
No question.
And because of the rise of MMA, that there's a generation of fighters that grow up as wrestlers or they go to Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. Deontay Wilder, I don't know if he could be a pro athlete in football, but he sure looks the part. Like, that guy's a legit athlete.
Right.
He walks into any room and he's the biggest badass there is, right? And that's the same thing with Fury. And now they get to fight again, and you have one guy who has as good a punch as we've seen in the sport, right? Remember when Drago and Rocky IV would punch and they'd measure it and it was like 1,000 pounds of pressure? That's what Deontay Wilder hits like. He hits like a ton of bricks. And then you got the one guy who occasionally can take that punch, and he's had all kinds of his own issues. Now, Dad was a bare knuckler. I just love this idea of the fight, but I like the boxer as opposed to the puncher. I'd take Fury, and I think it's going to be a whole heck of a lot of fun. And if you think about it, during my adulthood, I'm not sure. I know one of the Klitschko's was heavyweight champion, but I used to do this.
Both were, yeah.
But I've done this on my radio show where you quiz people who's the heavyweight champion of the world? You have no idea. How is that possible? But we go back to when we were kids, and you would always know whether it was Tyson or Holyfield or Lennox Lewis. You knew. And I think we're getting back to that point. And I think this fight is the beginning, hopefully, of a generation where the heavyweights come, because the biggest guys with the biggest punches, I want to see who the better man is, and we'll find out in Vegas.
And I think part of the reason we're getting back to that point, if we are indeed, is because of the first fight. As much as and I was there, as much as we hated to see a draw, it was,
I really did see
Fox hooked me up. But it was the draw is what Wilder needed. As long as he was knocking everybody out quickly, you wondered about the competition because clearly he hasn't been boxing that long, only 12, 13 years. He's not as skilled as the great heavyweights of the past. So you were like, he's just beating a bunch of tomato cans.
Right.
Now that he's got, it's like Ali Frazier. I'm not saying they're on that level.
Okay,
but the fact that they were so closely matched helped both fighters. And I think
that's what it means.
If he had knocked Fury out in the first round, a rematch or it wouldn't be as big of a deal. Now he's got a rival.
Yes, and I mean, this is the only time Deontay Wilder's going to walk into a ring and a guy's bigger than him with a longer reach than him. Lots of fights he's going to walk in and guys have more experience than him.
Right.
But to meet a man who is every bit as big, as angular, as long, maybe not as obviously not as athletic or in as good a shape, but I think that's part of the challenge to Wilder. But man, when he hits you. Oh my God!
I couldn't believe Fury got up.
I couldn't either. Fury couldn't even believe he got up. I mean, if you remember, one time he gets knocked down and he's out for a second, then all of a sudden and he gets back up. It's amazing.
Incredible.
Back here on First Things First, and we are joined by former All-Pro running back Brian Westbrook.
Good morning.
Great to see you here.
Good morning, man.
Good to see you, man.
Hey, he was talking about the fight. Like, we're all so into this fight. Everyone's into it. Who are you taking?
I'm going to Deontay Wilder. I think that right hand is vicious, and I think that he wants it a little bit more than Tyson Fury.
Fury's already mentioned the R word, retirement after. So I don't like that
real?
going in. I just don't like hearing that going into a fight.
It's a boxer. It's a boxer.
It's in the back of your mind.
When you start thinking about it, you start your training kind of goes away.
So Brady shouldn't come back and play either?
Well, it's a little bit different. Different game. This is different.
Hey, mention the R word.
All right. Well, it's only February, Brian, although I appreciate seeing you as a frequent at Brooklyn Nets games. But let's discuss some playoff football where the structure could reportedly change under the current CBA proposal. 7 teams from each conference will make the playoffs with only 1 bye per conference. So, Brian, what do you make of this?
Well, for me, I love playoff football. I love meaningful football games. I love the fact that it's either win or go home. And so anytime that as a fan, as an analyst, as a fan, that I could buckle in Saturday and watch football all day long, then wake up the next day, Sunday, wild card weekend, and watch football all day long, I'm right in my zone at that point. Now, that's as a fan and as an analyst. As a former player, I'm kind of putting the 17-game season and the 7-team wild card and the playoff situation in almost in the same boat, even though they may not be in the same boat. As a former player, I'm saying, well, hold on. If the Kansas City Chiefs were in this 17 playoff situation, they would have had to play 2 more games in 17 games. They would have had to play 2 more games. So they would have had to play the 17th game of the season and the first week of the playoffs. So to me, I'm looking at the wear and tear of my body. I remember after 16 weeks of the regular season, the wear and tear of my body was just like, well, hold on. I don't know if I have enough to make it into the playoffs. And so I'm always concerned about that. I think as younger players, you're always thinking dollar signs. You're thinking, hey, how much more money can I get? You're more so worried about that. As a veteran player, I was thinking about how many more years can I get? Right. Can I get another year on my contract? And so I think those couple games, when you add a 17th game and maybe 1 more game of the playoffs as a former player, I start to worry about the condition of the guys that are actually in the game.
You bring up a great point. It's not only for your longevity, how many more years can you play when you add possibly 2 games a year, but also the quality of the play. Like what we saw from Patrick Mahomes, we loved, right? But if he has to play 2 more games, does he still have that? Do the rest of the players still have that? Are they playing at that high level? Look, I'm not a big fan of the 17th game, and I think the reason they're expanding the playoffs in their proposal is to the players to say, look, you'll get more games, you'll get an extra team in the playoff. That's playoff money for another group of players. That's what they're giving the players to get the 17th game. I think the players should want much more. I think they should want health care benefits after retirement. Maybe if you can, I know football's different than the other sports, but more guaranteed money, somehow try to work. Like one extra team in the playoffs is not enough if I'm a player to get me to go to 17 games.
Well, let's start with the breakdown. And I know you're combining the two because it's a bigger discussion. But apparently the playoff thing's already agreed to, right? It's happening. Get on board. And it makes sense from this perspective. It's not just the added game and the added money. It's the added importance to week 16 and 15 and 17 17, right? Even without the 17th game, there's so many more teams involved in trying to get that last playoff. It keeps you from tanking. It's one of the things that baseball is trying to do by expanding their playoffs is keep those teams that are right on the borderline from selling off those pieces from tanking, because tanking has now become part of football, which it never was. That's the great thing about football is because guys are worried about getting cut, they always played hard, and we don't get the sense that some of these franchises are as invested in winning even from the start of the season. That, I think, cuts that out. So the playoff thing is happening. I don't like it because, just from the playoff perspective, it disproportionately rewards that one seed, as you point out, the more games. And here's a basketball analogy for us, right? If you play pickup ball, okay, do not ever play a game where a 3 counts as 2 and a 2 counts as 1, because that disproportionately values the 3-point shot. It shouldn't be worth twice as much, right? It's already probably overvalued as a 3 as opposed to 2, right? That's what this is doing. This is disproportionately rewarding a 1 seed, because oftentimes a 1 seed, not necessarily this year, but maybe with the Niners, they had a softer schedule at the start of the year. The Ravens did not. The Ravens just kicked everybody's ass and they were the 1 seed, right? But it disproportionately rewards the 1 seed, whereas everybody else, I got to play another game. I don't get a bye week. I just won my division.
Well, if your goal is to get more meaningful games during the season, not have load management type of situations where you're not playing all those things, now teams are worried about getting that 1 seed so they can try to get that first round bye. So it kind of goes hand in hand just a little bit there, don't you think?
Yes, it does, but you're going to have one team do it, okay? And as Chris pointed out, the Patriots have never won a Super Bowl when they have had a bye. Was the last 7 years?
The last 7 years, both teams in the Super Bowl have had a bye. So it's a huge advantage. I do think it's disproportionately benefiting that number 1 team.
And then to your point, where you combine the two, now you talk about the 17 games. And look, it's a negotiation. It's all a negotiation. If I'm the NFLPA, okay, and they offer 0.5% more, which is $5 billion over a 10-year deal. Sounds like a ton of money, but when you break it down, it's really $150,000 per player more. Okay, it's not. So one, I want another 5%, and I need that second bye week. If you're going to add a 17th game, and we're all going to make more money, okay, let's make even more money. Let's have another week of football. I mean, this, to me, it's actually kind of an easy fix. The Super Bowl, move it back, play it on President's Weekend, so after Super Bowl Sunday, we can all have the day off because we got to rest up, right?
That probably is something
So this is, the playoffs appear to be set. They're going to expand it. Everybody's going to make a little bit more money. But if they want to make a ton more money, you want to play that 17th game, give me another bye week, because that takes away the player safety angle of it. That takes away the argument of players elongating their career, and it makes the playoffs make more sense because teams are more rested heading in the playoffs, and so you have a better chance of putting their best foot forward.
There's been a big argument in the NBA, and you guys are both NBA guys, about load management, guys not playing in the games that count. Right. What if it's situations like if you're Drew Brees or Tom Brady, older players that are now saying, instead of 16 games or 17 games to me playing, I'm only going to play 13 because I want to be prepared to play in that first round of the playoffs. That's what I would be worried about if I'm an owner or even a fan, because now at this point I'm saying, if I'm Drew Brees, I only played 12 or so games this year, and I felt good in those 12 games. Right. If I had to play 16, Drew, you saw what that was 2 years ago. He wasn't able to do it successfully, and I'm concerned about the longevity as well as the load management aspect if I had to play that 17th game and the first round of the playoffs.
My initial response to that is Tom Brady or whoever usually couldn't afford to take off 4 games and their team still make the playoffs. But you're right. I mean, it happened with New England or New Orleans.
And New England.
Yeah, when he's been hurt.
Suspended.
Yeah.
When it was suspended.
That's right.
But I would hate, I don't like seeing it in basketball. I would hate to see it in football. And now, the owners may not care if the fans still show up, if the TV ratings are still there, but I think it would be bad for football if you start having load management.
But we already have guys sitting that 17th game.
That's but that even in basketball, before load management, you would have LeBron and a few guys sit out that last week, week and a half.
But we already have it in the NFL. They're already.
But nobody's taking off
in the middle of the season.
Right, in the meat of the season.
They should. right? It's actually really smart. You should, if you have a quality backup, absolutely let him take a beating.
Well, how many teams in the NFL have quality backups?
They don't, which brings me to the other point that I think NFL teams would be smart to negotiate is you got to expand the roster.
Yeah.
46 on game day is not enough. 53 is not enough. You expand the roster. But again, that means you're going to have to get more of that money because that 5% that seemed $5 billion, the 0.5%, it gets smaller and smaller when you expand the roster.
I think that'll hurt. Look, if I turn on the TV on Sunday and I'm watching the Patriots and the Chiefs and Pat Mahomes and Tom Brady aren't playing, I am upset.
Yeah, of course.
I'm upset.
Right, just like when you watch the NBA and the Spurs.
But the NBA, at least they got 82 games. I mean, in the NFL, that's one of the benefits is you only have the 16, 17 maybe games. Yeah. Each
NBA
one is
is trying
huge.
to shorten the season. NFL's
I wish they would.
Extend it. Brian, stick around.
65.
Time now for in or out. The NFL playoff structure could reportedly change under the current CBA proposal. 7 teams from each conference will make the playoffs with only 1 bye per conference. So, Doug, are you in or out on the new playoff format?
Okay, I'm out. And now it's a foregone conclusion it's going to happen. Hey, so again, this is if Doug or if we ruled the world. If I ruled the world, I'd be out on it.
Woo, I'd be out too.
Yes. I just said how nice she was.
Out of the world.
But you're right. It would be a bizarre world. I'm out on it. I think it's too much weight on the 1 seed, and it's too many. It feels like too many games. It's going to happen, but I wish they would still keep the top 2 seeds getting byes.
I'm in. I love playoff football. I love wild card weekend. And if you want that 1 seed, play a little bit harder during the regular season. Win more games in the regular season, if that's how important it is. And of course, a lot of the champions have had that bye. Now you have to play a little bit harder. Those regular season games mean a little bit more.
You sounding like a coach.
I know. The further you get away from the game, the closer you get to coaching.
I am out on this for the same reason as Doug. I think it gives too much of an advantage to that number 1 seed. The last 7 Super Bowls, both teams have had the bye week. So can it get to a point where it's essentially we start seeing just the number 1 seeds in the Super Bowl? Now, I'm more out, though, on the 17 games than I am on the playoffs. I'm with you. I love playoff football. I'd rather them keep it the way it is with 6 teams, but I'm not going to be mad about 7, but I don't like the 17 games.
All right, on to the Cowboys. Dak Prescott is coming off the best statistical year of his career, but Dallas Hall of Famer Emmitt Smith thinks Dak should take a team-friendly deal to keep the team core intact. So, Doug, are you in or out on Dak taking a team-friendly deal?
Well, I thought the rules were like, don't talk about somebody's mama, their girl, their religion, and their money.
Their money.
Right?
If you want a team.
Especially don't talk about somebody's money. And Emmitt kind of violated that rule there. I'm in, though, because I do think that Dak benefits from having all of these weapons around him, and he'd be wise to not bite the apple, not chase Carson Wentz's contract and Jared Goff's contract. Look, Jared Goff's contract and Todd Gurley's contract is the reason that they didn't make the playoffs, because you can't put enough weapons around him. You had to get new offensive linemen. I know it, again, this is if Doug ruled the world. It's not going to happen. But I'm in on him taking a team-friendly deal.
I'm out. I don't think Dak should be forced to take a team-friendly deal. He's been on a team-friendly deal the first 4 years of his career, a real team-friendly deal where he's been paid probably the least out of the most, the best quarterbacks in the league. And so I'm saying, if I'm Dak, I'm not taking a discount at all. Pay me the money that I deserve. I've been the face of your franchise. I put this franchise in a position to win. I won a bunch of games. Carson Wentz, same draft year, he got paid $107 million guarantees. You're talking about Jared Goff, $110 million in guarantees. Pay me the same type of money that you paid those guys.
Look, I'm in philosophically in that if taking instead of $35 million, $32 million a year is going to help us keep some of the guys we need, I'm in on that because I think you can look at it as an investment. If he keeps the guys he needs and they win a Super Bowl or get close to a Super Bowl, his endorsement money off the field gets even greater. My thing, though, I don't know that it's necessary because his offensive line is set for the next 3-4 years. You got Zeke locked up. You got some of your defensive. Jalen Smith just got locked up. Amari you got to keep, but I think they could probably keep him even with paying Dak. So philosophically, I'm all right with taking a haircut, but I don't know that he needs to in this situation.
Also, and Brian, maybe you could speak to this. I think this sounds like the debate like last night, right? The redistribution of wealth. But couldn't he, do you run the possibility of getting guys to want to play for you more if you go like, hey, I'm going to take less because I want you to get hooked up?
No, because did DeMarcus Lawrence take less? No. Did Ezekiel Elliott take less? Absolutely
but
not.
But Zeke is making less than 50% of what Dak's
No, but
making.
like Amari Cooper is like, look, man, you're important to me.
Yeah, those are nice things. However, what I want my team to do is draft better and then find better players. If we can't keep those guys that we currently have, I want to get my money. I also want you to do your job, which means you need to draft better, get those younger players to play better.
All right, on to the Patriots. With Tom Brady's future up in the air, Peter King predicted Andy Dalton could fill the void if TB12 leaves in free agency. So, Doug, are you in or out on New England being playoff contenders with Dalton under center?
I'm in. Like, Andy Dalton is actually, what is he, 71 and 60 as a quarterback? Made the playoffs 5 straight years. Like, he doesn't he's okay. And I think it's really important to mention, let's not compare him to Tom Brady. But Tom Brady at 43 years old is not the best quarterback in the NFL. He might not be a top 5, maybe a top 10 quarterback in the NFL. He's brilliant, right? In the continuum of football intelligence and talent, it's way more in football intelligence than in terms of talent. It didn't say they make the playoffs. You're still in a division where the Dolphins are rebuilding. Right. The Jets are perpetually rebuilding, although 7-2 when Sam Darnold was playing last year. And you got the Bills who made the playoffs 2 out of the last 3 years. But playoff contenders? Absolutely, because he's going to take less. They can spread it around. And Belichick still has an outstanding defense. Will they be a Super Bowl contender? No, but a playoff contender, yes.
I'm going without. I mean, I think Andy Dalton is just an okay quarterback. He hasn't had over 3,500 yards in any of the last 3 years. In the last 3 years, he's had double-digit interceptions. When you talk about Tom Brady, he doesn't turn the football over. He doesn't throw interceptions. He's only had double-digit interceptions once in the last 6 seasons. Andy Dalton loves to throw the ball to the other team. I'm not so sure that he's willing to step up to the challenge. And I think I'll say this. If I'm a New England Patriots fan and they said we could pay Tom Brady $30 million for the year or we can pay Andy Dalton $20 million, I'm still saying I want Tom Brady. We just have to pay him more and figure things out a different way.
Yeah, I'm in on them being a playoff contender. Now, they might miss the playoffs, but I think they'd be in the hunt. That's it. Dalton is solid in that regard. You mentioned his record. Most of those wins came, 4 or 5 years ago, and he's declined significantly.
Yes, but look, AJ Green's been hurt. I get it. Joe Mixon's been hurt. Their offensive line's an abject disaster. Look, they were off to a 4-1 start 2 years ago, and then the roof fell in with all the injuries. I'm not telling you he's quarterback Jesus now, okay? But he's better than how he's played recently with all the interceptions because the team has been a joke in terms of talent and coaching.
That's why, like I said, I'm in on them being a playoff contender, not a Super Bowl contender, kind of like you said.
Everybody's a playoff contender in the offseason. Everybody's a playoff contender. Maybe they're
within a game or two of the last playoff spot.
Everyone's also taking CB's turn. Let him have his turn.
Sorry.
On to Aaron Rodgers. A recent report suggests that A-Rod's days in Green Bay might be numbered and that the Packers could move on after his contract is up. So, Doug, are you in or out on Rodgers' Super Bowl window?
I think Super Bowl window's wide open for a couple of years. All the best players on that roster are not yet 30 years old outside of Aaron Rodgers. That was he had a first-year coach that I thought they got embarrassed in terms of coaching in the NFC Championship game, but I do think that they'll get better. Look, they've done a really good job of going out and getting free agents as they got the Smith brothers who are a dynamic combination. They finally figured out we got a running back in Aaron Jones. I think they fixed a lot of things on that roster, but you look at his wide receiving core, when healthy, they're going to continue to get better, and they're all not yet in their athletic prime. I'm in on the window still being open for a couple years.
I'm in as well. I think the window's still open. As long as you have Aaron Rodgers, I think you have a chance. But if you can add a special player like a guy like Stephon Diggs, now you have somebody on the opposite side of Devontae Adams. Now you're saying, now we can't double team one guy and take away one guy. We have to worry about 2 different guys on the opposite sides of the field. To me, that kind of swings things in their favor just a little bit.
I think the window's open. I don't know if I think it's as open as you guys do, but and let's call it what it is. Aaron Rodgers has to be better too, because the last few years, I know 2 years ago they had injury, he was injured and all that, but he's got to be better. We talk about Tom Brady's decline. His QBR and his yards per game were higher than Aaron Rodgers. He only threw 2 fewer touchdowns than Aaron Rodgers, and he didn't have Devontae Adams, and he didn't have Aaron Jones in the backfield. So Aaron's got to be better. Now, I know San Francisco was a unique matchup for them that was just tough.
Bad matchup.
The other teams, the other good teams in the league that they played, they fared well against. So I think they've got a window, but I certainly wouldn't call them the favorite in the NFC.
Who would be?
Right now, off the top of my head, I'd probably go with the Niners again.
Right?
Yeah.
Okay, but outside of the Niners, I mean, they're right there, you know?
I might take the
Think about it.
Saints over them,
If Seattle has any idea what they're doing at first and an inch, right, in the last game of the season, Green Bay plays the Niners, which is a bad matchup, at home.
It's a horrible matchup for them.
Yes, but a completely different matchup when you play in Green Bay in the winter.
It's a little window. It's a crack.
The window's open. We're closing this window. We're closing this window. All right, on to some hoops. In just 3 seasons with the Warriors, Kevin Durant took home 2 Finals MVPs. But when KD decided to leave Golden State and take his talents to Brooklyn, many wondered what his motives were. KD tried to set the record straight yesterday. Take a look.
Do you feel like you have to win a ring somewhere else to solidify this idea that you can just win a championship?
I don't believe I can do anything in this life by myself. I never felt that we can win championships based off of only what I do. I felt that way in OKC when we had success, in Golden State when we had success, and it's gonna have to be the same thing in Brooklyn. A lot of people seen I left a successful organization and wonder why. For the most part, it's just wanting to just make a change in my career. It was as simple as that.
So, Chris, do you think that Durant needs to prove that he can win a title without Steph, Clay, and Draymond?
First of all, he didn't answer the question. He said, I can't do anything by myself. Of course, you can't win it literally by yourself. So he did a good job of dodging that. To be honest, it wouldn't be wise to answer it. If he sat there and said, you know what? Yeah, I do need to win a championship. Now you put all that pressure on yourself. Maybe your team's just not good enough. So I think he handled it the right way, but I kind of saw between the lines what he was doing. He was avoiding the question. Now, his legacy is set as far as obviously Hall of Famer, obviously all-time great player. I think, Doug, you may have him in your top 10 all-time. Is that
I don't know. I even put together a list. I thought he was I thought he was the best player in the league over most of the last 3 years.
Okay, so bottom line is he's going down as an elite all-time great player regardless. Now, if he were to win another championship, it would be huge for him. When he went to Golden State, I said, I did not rip him. I was one of the few people that did not rip him in the media. And I said it was because when he wins a championship and 2 or maybe 3 championships and he's the finals MVP, the same people ripping him will be praising him. And that's just what happened. So he got tons of credit for going to Golden State and doing what he did, becoming their best player, winning the finals MVP. But let's just keep it real. As great as Kevin Durant is, you went to the best team in the league and won. There are a number of players who I think could have went to Golden State and won those championships. I don't take it away from him, but that's just the fact in my view. I think they would have won last year without him if Klay Thompson doesn't get hurt. So it would do wonders for his legacy. If he wants to get firmly in the top 10, in most people's top 10. If he wants to, I know your GOAT conversation is really long. If he wants to get in that GOAT conversation, I don't think he ever would be considered the GOAT. But if he wants to get in that magic bird, right below that GOAT conversation, which for me is just LeBron, Michael, and Kareem, then I think winning another title, maybe 2, probably 2 to be honest, in Brooklyn, would do it because he is phenomenal. We never seen anything like him as a 7-footer who's a legitimate perimeter player. Right. Legitimately unstoppable. I've always said he's a 7-foot version of Steph Curry. But he has to win without the great cast he had in Golden State to prove it.
There's a bunch. Let me unpack a little bit. Well, you said his legacy's set, but he can add to his legacy.
He can add to it. His legacy is an all-time great, elite all-time great is already set.
Yes. I look, the story is not yet, there's a other chapter here. First, you're coming off an Achilles tendon tear, and he's on the other side of 30 years old. It's hard to believe he will be the same guy. On the other hand, one of the things I think
31.
All of us,
he's not that far over the
right, but he's been in the NBA for over a decade, right? He's got a lot of wear off those tires. But we all believe that his style of play may be able to stand up even if he loses a half step because the Achilles, right? Because he's so tall,
size.
Right. I don't think he's Steph Curry. I think he's Kareem. if you really want to get down to it, because he's got an unstoppable. His pull-up jump shot is an unstoppable weapon. Well, it's not just that he's a great shooter; it's that because he's so tall, because of where he and how he shoots it, you almost can't block it. You can't stop it. Much like Kareem Abdul-Jabbar's skyhook.
With the skyhook.
And kind of like Kareem Abdul-Jabbar.
Kareem lasted long.
No, not only that though. Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, we point out, like, doesn't get mentioned as the great of all time, even though 6 titles, 6 MVPs, right? And Kareem kind of still was always kind of searching for himself, even when he was out in LA. He didn't necessarily feel comfortable with the glitz and glamour of Magic Johnson. That's what this guy's doing. He's still searching for himself. Look, he's laid out so many different reasons why he's done what he's done. I do think the truth is starting to come out in that he didn't want to call out players in Oklahoma City, but it wasn't about playing with Steph and Clay. It was about playing where you could have space. He thinks he's the best scorer in the NBA. I agree with him. But he couldn't do it when everywhere he goes, there's another defender, right? You throw Andre Robertson out there, can't shoot, and Steven Adams, who can't shoot, and even Russell Westbrook.
Sharing the ball, the whole philosophy.
But when they're up 3-1, Golden State was like, look, let's just guard him with 2 guys. And it's almost impossible to do what you do. Now, he didn't play well in Game 6, and Clay was otherworldly, but I understood why he wanted that space. I'll disagree with you in terms of anybody could have gone there, because though the Warriors won 73 games, they were ahead of the curve and everybody was catching up to them. And this guy was the cheat code. This guy didn't allow the rest of the league to catch him.
He was the cheat code, but you think everybody was catching up to him?
Yes.
Because they won 73, they had Cleveland down. I take nothing away from the Cavs and LeBron and Kyrie, but if Draymond's not suspended for Game 5, I think Golden State wins that series.
But look.
So they would have had 2 straight rings, and everybody's still young and in their prime.
But if he wins, listen, if he wins a title in Brooklyn, if he wins 2 titles in Brooklyn,
it's huge.
We're going to have a completely different discussion.
That's why when I say the complexion of his legacy and I don't think he needs to win it to prove anything at this juncture. However, I think it changes the complexion of how he is remembered as you start to think about his legacy as he plays on.
But when I say he's set as his legacy, I mean he's already
right. He's
9-time All-NBA, 10-time All-Star.
He's already set in that. I just mean it can only go higher.
But here's the part that I disagree with, and sir, you tell me if I'm wrong. You said the people that were naysayers when he went to Golden State would cheer him. That hasn't happened.
Oh, yes, it did.
No.
I'm not going to name names, but I could name people I was on the set with who ripped Kevin Durant for going there and then praised him, because I saw the same thing with LeBron James. People ripped him when he went to Miami, and soon as they start winning, they were praising him. He was winning MVPs and all that.
But even you just said, look, a bunch of people could have gone to Golden State and won
I do
won
think
a title.
that.
You look at his numbers though that year, like that.
He was phenomenal.
He was the best player guarded by some people's greatest of all time. He was better than LeBron.
But hold on, both of you guys play ball at a higher level. The fact that he had Steph and Clay and Iguodala and all that they had on the court, that made it easier.
Of course it did.
That made it much easier. I had to pay so much attention to them.
LeBron James had Kyrie Irving and Kevin Love, and then they had.
I'm not saying Durant wasn't great. I'm just saying you cannot overlook the fact that putting him on the court with those players made it easier for him to do what he did.
No question.
That's what I'm saying.
But I would disagree with you. Did people say that he was great? Yes, but people still continue, and even there's a little bit of
underhand. A lot of the criticism of KD is off the court stuff,
right?
The burner accounts and all that.
I feel like he went there to show he's the best player in the league. I felt like he was the best player in the league, and there are still a lot of people that are like, nah. He went 73, went 10, they won 2 titles. They would have won it with him. They would have won it without him. I still think there's the naysayers, and that's why he's got to show that he can win outside of Golden State.
So you think he has to show it? Because I don't think he has to. That's what I mean. He's elite.
However,
ultra elite.
I don't truly believe so, because I know what I've seen.
You already felt like he was the best player prior to
that period of time.
Let me ask you this.
Yes.
I think historically you have LeBron ahead of him.
Yes.
He needs, if he won 2 titles in Brooklyn, even maybe for you it's 1, can he catch LeBron?
Yes.
Historically. But he has to win what? 2?
I don't know. Let's just see. Like, I hate saying if he wins 2,
but and the window is open. The window is open.
Like, I don't know what he's going to look like. I don't know if Kyrie's
going to be healthy. Well, he's got to lead him.
I don't know a lot of different stuff.
Lead him to 2.
All right, time to play Drawing a Blank. Emmitt Smith wants Dak Prescott to take a team-friendly deal to keep the Cowboys' core intact. So let's take a look at that core. Doug, the most important Cowboy next season will be blank.
Zeke Elliott. Zeke Elliott. No, listen, when he rushes for 70, you're running back. He's supporting me. When Ezekiel Elliott runs for 75 or more yards, they are 35-10. When he rushes for less than 75 yards, they're 2-11. Feed Zeke. Remember that meme where he's eating that cereal, right? Yeah. Feed Zeke.
I love Zeke, and I love his ability. I think they need to open that offense up a little bit more. I think Mike McCarthy would do that. Last year, Dak had great production, but you also got to look at the coaching staff. There's a reason why Jason Garrett got fired. I think you bring Mike McCarthy in, you add that production as far as yards and hopefully some wins. He looks a little bit different. Dak Prescott is the most important Cowboy.
I thought you were going to say Mike McCarthy, which I think is a legitimate answer. You know, Mike McCarthy is very important for them, but I'm going with Dak as far as players because, look, first 3 years, Dak won and didn't have the huge numbers. Last year had the huge individual numbers, didn't win. This is the year they need him to put both together. Big numbers, big games against the playoff type teams, and I think Dak Prescott, that's why he's the most important.
Zeke's eating the cereal, Dak's eating the soup. Beat him. The NFL
favorite
playoff structure could.
What's your favorite cereal?
Mine, Lucky Charms.
Lucky Charms.
At my age, granola.
Under the current
it used to be something like Lucky Charms.
7 teams from each conference will make the playoffs with only one bye per conference.
Diamonds,
so
real talk. Horseshoes.
Okay. Next to the cereal. With the expansion, Doug, the team that missed the playoffs last season that will make it this season is blank.
The L.A. Chargers. The L.A. Chargers.
Really?
Yeah. They had injuries in their offensive line. They had Melvin Gordon holding out. Like, look, they got dudes. And, oh, yeah, by the way, they didn't have Durant James, who might be the best defensive player not named Nick Bosa in football. Still got Joey Bosa, who they probably
Who's the quarterback?
Probably Tyrod Taylor. Good enough.
Wow.
Right?
Big question.
I would guess Tyrod Taylor, maybe draft Tua, and eventually maybe he plays late in the year. But, like, they have a squad. There's a reason. It's not just the empty seats that they want Tom Brady, is they know they got dudes.
And offensive line is
I'm telling you, Derwin James, Melvin Ingram, and Joey Bosa on the defensive side with Mike Williams and Keenan Allen and Austin Eckler. And I think they re-signed Hunter Henry. They got a squad. Tyrod Taylor's going to be good enough. He was good enough in Buffalo. He'll be good enough.
How many games did they win last year? 2?
It was 12 years.
Well, right? just wasn't a lot. There's a reason. They still had that talent. It was a reason why they didn't win very many games.
They had massive injuries in the offensive line, and Derwin James didn't hardly play.
Well, that's the problem. My answer is the Browns. I think they have a bunch of talent. I think you find a way to.
How many games they win last year?
That's a bit of an issue. I think you kind of switch things up just a little bit with Baker Mayfield. Get him to not throw the ball to the other team. You got a chance of winning some games. It's going to be a tough division. I think the Steelers come back a little bit, but I still think the Browns have enough talent to win.
Well, I was going to say, I thought about the Browns, but that division, Baltimore obviously not going away, and Pittsburgh, if they were good last year.
Without Ben.
Right. That's my only worry about the Browns. Can they be better than those two teams? Thought about the Jets, but I'm going with the Cowboys. We've been talking about the Cowboys all show. Dak, Mike McCarthy, they're going to get it done.
All right, on to Cam Newton. After 9 seasons with the Panthers, that is a good call. It looks like his time in Carolina might be coming to a close. The team is reportedly open to trading the former MVP. So, Doug, the best trade destination for Cam Newton is blank.
Tampa. Look, I don't think he's not the runner he used to be. He doesn't even want to run like he used to. So I don't think that fits Chicago, who a lot of people rumor. Plus, when you got all those injuries, you don't want to play in that cold, man, that wind. Yeah. And the quarterback whisperer is Bruce Arians. He also likes to throw the ball deep down the field. And Cam Newton, he might not throw it to somebody, but he can throw the ball deep downfield. I think Cam Newton and Tampa makes a whole heck of a lot of sense if they move on from Jameis Winston.
Yeah, I like Tampa. I think that Cam, with those 2 shoulder surgeries, may have a little issue throwing the ball deep in that way. I like the Chicago Bears. I think that they have an innovative offense with Matt Nagy there. I think they have a good running game, a solid running game, and I think they also have a defense that's not going to put the pressure on the offense to score 27 points a game. I think if he can get to 21 points a game, that defense can carry them.
I'm going to help you out on your previous prediction. L.A. Chargers. I think you talk about a name. I'm not saying he's Tom Brady, but he would generate at least a little bit of excitement out there in Southern California as they move into the new stadium. And look, you like Tyrod Taylor. I'd take Cam Newton over him, no question about it. The last time we saw Cam healthy, He was 6-2 through the first 9 weeks of the season, 15 touchdowns, 4 interceptions, over 100 passer rating. Like, he looked great. He was in an MVP conversation early 2 years ago. Then he gets hurt and the rest is history. So if he's healthy, look, I'm not saying he's their quarterback for the next 10 years, next 5 years even. But 1 year, give it a try, if you're the Chargers.
All right, on to the guy that Brian was talking about earlier in the show. Stephon Diggs, the star wide receiver, deleted all Vikings content from his Instagram, which prompted trade rumors.
If it happens on the gram, it's going to happen.
It's real. So, Doug, the quarterback you want to see throwing to Diggs next season is blank.
Thomas Patrick Edward Brady. This simple solution, right? I mean, Minnesota's in cap hell, and you mentioned Stefanski. Like, good luck with Odell Beckham Jr. Because obviously,
Odell's been good. He was good last season.
I know he was. He is going to hate this system. Okay? I mean, Stephon Diggs hated that system. Everybody hated the system. They were all up in arms. I mean, Kirk Cousins was apologizing for not throwing the football because they're going to run it, they're going to run it, and they're going to run it. Stephon Diggs is like, check, please. Stephon Diggs, I want to see him catch balls. I think he's an elite wide receiver. He's a top 5 wide receiver in the league. But we haven't seen the consistent productivity. He hasn't gotten the opportunities. And Tom Brady needs a number 1 wide receiver. That makes the most sense to me.
Who needs a guy that can certainly help them win more games to be a guy opposite Devontae Adams? That's Aaron Rodgers. I think that Aaron Rodgers is a guy that he should play with. Now, the hard part is to be able to get the Vikings to trade within that division for them to be able to get Stephon Diggs. But I think that 1-2 punch with Adams and Diggs would be critical for Aaron Rodgers if you want to make that Super Bowl run.
It only took us 2.5 hours, Doug, but we agree on something.
All right!
I'm with you on Tom Brady. Look, I still think give Brady a weapon like Diggs, and I probably still like Kansas City better, but they're right there and got a shot at the Super Bowl if they get Diggs.
All right.
Thank you for listening to the First Things First podcast. Remember, leave us a review and tell us what you think. Subscribe to the podcast on Apple Podcasts and catch us on FS1 Monday through Friday, 6:30 a.m. Eastern.